Have you ever discarded a rough stone, only to realize later it was an uncut diamond worth more than everything you owned? Liam thought he was trading up. He thought Oprah was plain, dull, and easily replaceable. He wanted a woman with status, a name that unlocked doors. So he tossed her aside like yesterday's trash. But he didn't know the secret Oprah had been concealing for 3 years. He didn't know that the woman scrubbing his dishes was the sole heir to a trillion-dollar dynasty that owned the very bank he worked for. This is the story of a man who sold his soul for fool's gold, and the woman who bought it back just to crush him. The rain in Seattle didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. That's how Liam felt as he sat in the booth of Joe's Diner. The vinyl seat cracked beneath his tailored navy suit. He glanced at his Rolex, a knockoff, though a very convincing one, and tapped his fingers impatiently against the laminate table. Across from him sat Oprah. She looked exhausted. She always looked exhausted these days. She wore that beige cardigan he despised, the one with the fraying cuff, and her brown hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She was nursing a lukewarm tea, her large, gentle eyes fixed on him with a confusion that irritated him more than it should have. "Liam," she said softly, her voice raspy from a double shift at the city archive. "You said it was urgent. Is everything okay? Is it your mom?" Liam exhaled, a sound rehearsed to convey burden rather than boredom. "No, Oprah. My mother is fine. It's us. We're not fine." Oprah froze. The spoon in her hand clinked against the ceramic mug. "What do you mean?" "I mean, look at this." Liam gestured vaguely at the diner, at her, at the space between them. "I'm moving up, Oprah. I just secured the account for the Kensington merger. I'm going to be a vice president at Stratton Oakmont within the year. I have a trajectory." "I know." Oprah smiled, though it was faint. "I'm so proud of you. I bought a bottle of that sparkling wine you like to celebrate tonight." "Stop." Liam cut her off, his voice glacial. "That's exactly it. Sparkling wine. Coupon clipping. Staying in on Fridays to watch reruns. It's small, Oprah. You're small." The insult hung in the air, heavier than the smell of grease and old coffee. Oprah blinked, her face going pale. "I'm saving money so we can buy a house, Liam. I'm working 2 jobs." "And that's the problem," Liam snapped, keeping his voice low but venomous. "You're a worker, a drudge. I need a partner, Oprah. Someone who understands the world I'm stepping into. I need someone who can walk into a gala and turn heads, not someone who looks like they're there to serve the hors d'oeuvres." He reached into his pocket, not for a ring, but for a check. He slid it across the table. It was for $5,000. "What is this?" Oprah whispered, staring at the paper as though it were radioactive. "Severance," Liam said, devoid of irony. "For the rent. I'm breaking the lease. I'm moving into the penthouse at the Four Seasons Residences next week. Jessica has a place there." Oprah's head snapped up. "Jessica. Jessica Thorne, the intern." "She's not an intern anymore," Liam corrected, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "And her father sits on the board of directors. She understands me, Oprah. She has ambition. She has a name." Oprah looked at the check, then back at Liam. For a moment, Liam braced for tears. He anticipated begging. He had rehearsed his rejection of her pleas. But Oprah didn't cry. Her expression shifted from confusion to a strange, terrifying calm, a look he had never once seen in the 3 years they had shared that cramped one-bedroom apartment. "You're leaving me because I don't have a name?" Oprah asked, her voice steady. "It's not just that," Liam deflected, rising and buttoning his jacket. "It's about compatibility. We don't fit. You're a Honda, Oprah. Reliable, sure, but I'm in the market for a Ferrari. Keep the money. You'll need it." He didn't look back as he walked out of the diner. He stepped into the rain, feeling lighter, liberated from the dead weight. He pulled out his phone and dialed Jessica. "It's done," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "I'm on my way. Champagne. Real champagne this time. Dom Perignon." Inside the diner, Oprah sat motionless. She didn't touch the check. She slowly reached into her worn tote bag and retrieved an old black flip phone, a burner she kept buried at the bottom. She dialed a number she hadn't called in 5 years. The line connected on the first ring. "Miss Serafina." A British voice answered. It was Arthur, the head of security for the vast, sprawling empire of the Rothschild family. Arthur, Oprah said, and her voice transformed. The rasp vanished, replaced by a clipped, aristocratic, icy tone Liam had never heard. He's gone. You can send the car. The rolls. And Arthur, tell grandmother she was right. I'm ready to take my seat at the table. 3 months had passed since the day at the diner. For Liam, they were the best 3 months of his life, or so he told himself every time he examined his reflection in the bathroom he now shared with Jessica Thorne. Life with Jessica was fast, loud, expensive. They spent weekends in the Hamptons at her father's estate, sipping gin and tonics with men who owned islands. Liam felt as though he had finally arrived. He was no longer just an associate. He was Jessica Thorne's boyfriend. That title carried weight, but it was also exhausting. Jessica wasn't like Oprah. She didn't make him coffee in the mornings. She screamed at the housekeeper if her latte wasn't precisely 104 degrees. She didn't listen to him vent about his day. She interrupted him to discuss which influencers had been at the club the night before. Liam, are you listening? Jessica snapped, snapping her manicured fingers in front of his face. They were at Lernerton, one of the most exclusive restaurants in New York. Liam blinked, pulling his attention back. Sorry, babe. Just thinking about the merger. Well, stop thinking and start networking, she hissed, gesturing with her wine glass toward a table in the corner. Do you know who that is? That's serious wealth right there. That's Mr. Sterling's personal attorney. Liam looked. He saw a gray-haired man eating quietly. So, Jessica rolled her eyes. The Sterling Gala is next week. It's the event of the decade. Everyone who is anyone will be there. My father says he can get us tickets, but we need to be on the list for the Inner Circle VIP room. That's where the real deals happen. The Sterling Gala. Liam had heard the whispers. It was a charity event hosted by the Shadow Board, a consortium of investors so wealthy they didn't appear on Forbes lists because they paid to keep their names off them. I'll handle it, Liam said, straightening his tie. He felt a surge of arrogance. He was a rising star. He had discarded his past. He could handle anything. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the atmosphere was entirely different. In a private wing of the Ritz Paris, a woman stood on the balcony overlooking the Place Vendôme. She wore a silk dressing gown that cost more than a year of Liam's rent. Her hair, no longer in a messy bun, cascaded in lustrous, polished waves down her back. The acquisition of Stratton Oakmont is nearly complete, Miss Serafina, a man in a sharp suit said from the doorway, holding a tablet. We have secured 51% of the controlling shares through the shell companies in the Caymans. The board remains unaware. Serafina, formerly Oprah, turned. Her face was harder now. The softness Liam had mocked was gone, replaced by the steel of a woman raised to govern empires. And the personnel files, she asked. Reviewed. We have flagged the employees for restructuring. Liam Carter is on the list for promotion to VP, pending the board's approval. Serafina walked into the room and took the tablet. She stared at Liam's corporate headshot. He looked smug. Leave him, she said quietly. The advisor looked startled. Leave him? But the instructions were to remove inefficient assets. Oh, he is inefficient. Serafina smiled, a cold, dangerous expression. But terminating him is too easy. He wants to be a vice president. Let him. He wants to attend the Sterling Gala. Ensure he receives an invitation. In fact, give him a front row seat. I don't follow, ma'am. Liam loves heights, Arthur, Serafina said, moving to a table where a diamond necklace rested. The Coeur d'Alert, a piece rumored to be lost at sea, now sitting casually on her vanity. He loves to climb. I want him to climb so high that when I kick the ladder out from under him, he has plenty of time to reflect on his mistake on the way down. She picked up the necklace. Is everything ready for my return to New York? Yes, Miss Rothschild. The private jet is fueled. The press release is drafted. The world believes the Rothschild heiress has been in a Swiss clinic for 3 years. They are expecting a fragile girl. Serafina clasped the diamonds around her neck. They felt cold against her skin. They are expecting a victim, she corrected. What they are going to get is a queen. Make sure Liam's invitation is delivered by courier. Hand-delivered. I want him to feel special. The invitation arrived at Liam's desk on a Tuesday. It wasn't simply an envelope. It was a heavy, velvet-lined box. Inside, resting on black satin, was a gold-plated card engraved with the words, "The Sterling Foundation requests the honor of your presence at the Winter Solstice Gala. Admit to VIP Table 4. Liam stared at it, his heart hammering. Table 4. Single digits. That meant he wasn't merely in the room. He was near the front. He was near the power. Nice. A voice sneered from the neighboring cubicle. It was Brad, his rival for the VP position. Who did you have to impress to get that? Pure talent and connections, Brad. Liam smirked, closing the box. He immediately texted Jessica, "We're in table 4. Start shopping." That evening, Jessica was ecstatic, though her excitement was purely self-serving. Table 4. My father is at table 12. Oh my God, Liam, do you know who sits in the single digits? The royal families, the oil tycoons, the Rothschilds. Liam laughed as he poured himself a drink. They're old news. Dust and inheritance. You idiot, Jessica snapped. They own half the central banks in the world. There's a rumor that the granddaughter, Serafina, is coming out of seclusion. She's the sole heir. If she's there, Liam, if you can get an audience with her, you're not just looking at VP. You're looking at CEO. Liam swirled his whiskey. Ambition was a drug, and he was overdosing. Watch me, he said. I can charm anyone. I charmed you, didn't I? Jessica gave him a look that wasn't quite love. It was calculation. Don't ruin this. I bought a dress that costs more than your car. And I, Liam said, examining his reflection in the window, am going to buy a tuxedo that makes James Bond look underdressed. He felt invincible. He thought of Oprah for a fleeting second, a brief image of her in that fraying cardigan. He chuckled. She's probably clipping coupons right now, he thought, while I'm about to dine with kings. He had no idea that the king he was preparing to meet was actually the queen he had thrown away. The night of the gala arrived. New York City was electric. The Plaza Hotel was cordoned off by the NYPD. Limousines stretched for 6 blocks. Liam stepped out of a black SUV, Jessica on his arm. She looked stunning in a red Vera Wang gown, though her smile was practiced, calibrated for the paparazzi. Liam adjusted his cuffs. Flashbulbs exploded in blinding bursts around them. Name? A security guard with an earpiece asked at the entrance. He wasn't consulting a list. He was scanning retinas. Liam Carter and guest. The scanner beeped green. Welcome, Mr. Carter. You are expected. They moved onto the red carpet. The air smelled of expensive perfume and money. Inside, the ballroom had been transformed into a winter wonderland, towering ice sculptures, cascading white roses, candlelight shimmering off every surface. It was breathtaking. They located table 4, positioned directly beside the stage. The table was set with gold cutlery. 2 seats remained empty, their place cards conspicuously blank. Who are we sitting with? Jessica whispered. Someone important, Liam said, settling into his seat. He felt like royalty. Then, a hush fell over the room. The lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the top of the grand staircase. Ladies and gentlemen, the master of ceremonies announced, his voice filling the hall. Please welcome the chairwoman of this evening, the new majority owner of the Global Banking Consortium, Miss Serafina Rothschild. Liam applauded politely, craning his neck. A woman stepped into the light. She wore a gown of midnight blue velvet, encrusted with diamonds that shimmered like a galaxy. Her hair was swept into a regal crown. She moved with a grace that seemed to part the air around her. She descended the staircase and looked up, her face projected onto the massive screens, flanking the stage. Liam stopped breathing. The champagne glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. Jessica jumped. Liam, what the? But Liam couldn't hear her. He couldn't hear the music. He couldn't feel his legs. Because the woman on the screen, the trillion-dollar heiress, the most powerful woman in the room, was Oprah, and she was looking directly at table 4. The ballroom was spinning, or perhaps it was only Liam's mind, unable to anchor itself to the reality unfolding before him. On the massive screens, Serafina was smiling, not the shy, apologetic smile she used to offer when she'd forgotten to buy milk. This was a smile that could launch armies or collapse economies. "Liam, pick up your glass," Jessica hissed, digging her nails into his arm. "You're making a scene. Why are you staring at her like you've seen a ghost?" "I know her," Liam croaked. His throat felt packed with sand. "Everyone knows her, you idiot." "She's a Rothschild," Jessica whispered furiously, scanning the room. "Just shut up and look wealthy." Serafina stepped away from the podium. The crowd parted like a tide. She didn't walk toward the head table where the politicians and royalty were seated. She walked straight toward table 4. Liam's heart slammed against his ribs like a trapped animal. "Run," his instinct screamed. "Get up and run." But he was paralyzed. She stopped directly in front of them. Up close, the transformation was even more staggering. Her skin glowed with the kind of health that only extraordinary wealth could sustain. The fraying cardigan had been replaced by diamonds likely worth more than the entire Stratton Oakmont building. "Good evening," she said. Her voice was velvet wrapped around a razor blade. Jessica practically launched herself from her chair. "Miss Rothschild, it is such an honor. I'm Jessica Thorne. My father is Richard Thorne of Thorne Global. We've been hoping to meet you." Serafina didn't even glance at Jessica. Her eyes, those deep brown, gentle eyes Liam had once found dull, were locked onto him. "And you must be Liam," she said. He rose to his feet, legs trembling. "Oprah, I mean, miss." "You can call me Serafina," she said coolly. Oprah was a pseudonym, a small social experiment I was conducting. I wanted to observe how ordinary people live, love, and betray. The table fell silent. Jessica looked between Serafina and Liam, her eyes widening. "Wait, you know him." Serafina finally glanced at Jessica, offering a pitying smile. "Know him? We lived together for 3 years. I laundered his dress shirts. I cooked his pasta. I believe I even covered his rent on occasion." Jessica gasped, withdrawing her hand from Liam's arm as though he were contagious. You were with the Rothschild heiress, and you didn't tell me?" "He didn't know," Serafina said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur. "He thought I was a tedious little archivist. Isn't that right, Liam? You thought I was a Honda." Liam flinched. The word hung in the air. People at surrounding tables, CEOs, senators, celebrities, had begun to listen. I didn't mean," Liam stammered. "Oh, you meant it." Serafina laughed softly. She reached into her diamond-encrusted clutch and produced a piece of paper. It was wrinkled. It was the $5,000 check. "You gave me this," she said, holding it up. "Severance pay for 3 years of my life. You told me to keep it because I would need it." She tore the check in half, then into quarters. She let the pieces drift down onto Liam's untouched plate of filet mignon. "I don't need your money, Liam. In fact, I acquired your building this morning. Did you know that? Stratton Oakmont is now a subsidiary of the Serafina Trust." Liam's knees buckled. He dropped back into his seat. "Enjoy the gala," Serafina said, turning her back on him. "I hear the champagne is Dom Perignon. Real champagne. Try not to choke on it." She walked away, the train of her gown sweeping the floor. Liam sat in the wreckage of his ego. He felt every eye in the room settle on him. He turned to Jessica, searching for an anchor. "Jessica." Jessica stood, her expression one of pure contempt. "You dated her, and you dumped her. For me. I didn't know. You are the most foolish man I have ever encountered," she hissed. She snatched her purse. "Don't follow me. I need to distance myself from you before you sink my reputation entirely." She walked away, leaving him alone at the VIP table. A waiter approached and looked at the confetti on Liam's plate. "Are you finished with that, sir?" he asked, perfectly dryly. Liam stared at the torn pieces of paper. They were all that remained. The following morning, Liam didn't go into work. He lay in bed in the penthouse, staring at the ceiling, replaying the evening on an endless loop. At 8 a.m., his phone rang. It was the CEO's secretary. "Mr. Carter, your presence is required in the main boardroom immediately. Attendance is mandatory for all senior management." Is it about the merger?" Liam asked, his voice unsteady. "Just get here, Liam." He showered, dressed in his finest remaining suit, though it felt like a costume now, and drove to the office. The atmosphere at Stratton Oakmont was frantic. People were rushing with boxes. Shredders hummed. When he entered the boardroom, the air felt glacial. The long mahogany table was full. The CEO, Mr. Henderson, looked ashen. At the head of the table, in the chairman's seat, sat Serafina. She wore a sharp white power suit that made her look like a modern-day angel of reckoning. Arthur, her British security chief, stood beside her, expression like carved stone. "Sit down, Liam," Serafina said, without looking up from a file she was reading. Liam took the only vacant seat, at the far end of the table. The distance felt like miles. "As you all know," Serafina began, closing the file, "my family has acquired this firm. We are restructuring. We are removing inefficiencies." She looked directly at Liam. "We have been auditing the accounts of the prospective vice presidents. Mr. Carter, we found some noteworthy discrepancies in your expense reports." Liam's blood went cold. "That's standard practice. Everyone expenses client dinners." "Client dinners?" Serafina nodded slowly. "And weekends in the Hamptons. Jewelry purchases filed as office supplies. A penthouse lease logged as corporate housing." Jessica said it was acceptable," Liam blurted, throwing her under the bus without a moment's hesitation. "Jessica Thorne doesn't work here," Serafina said calmly. "You do, and this constitutes embezzlement." The room inhaled sharply. Mr. Henderson stared at Liam. "Is this true?" "It's a misunderstanding." "It's theft," Serafina corrected. "However, I am a measured owner. I am not going to terminate you, Liam." Liam exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Don't thank me yet." She smiled. "I'm not terminating you because if I do, I am obligated to issue a severance package. And as you know, I dislike wasting resources on poor investments." She slid a single sheet of paper down the length of the table. It traveled all the way to Liam. "Instead, you are being reassigned." Liam looked at the paper. "Position, Junior Data Entry Clerk. Location, Archive Basement B." "You said I was small," Serafina said, her voice resonating in the silent room. "You said my work in the archives was for drudges, so I think it's only fitting you learn the trade." She continued without pause. "You will report to the basement immediately. Your salary has been adjusted to minimum wage. Your expense account is revoked. And if you resign, we will deliver the embezzlement file to the FBI. You will face federal charges. 10 years minimum." She leaned forward. "So what will it be, Liam? The basement or a cell?" Liam looked around the room. His colleagues, men he had drunk with, rivals he had mocked, stared back with a mixture of horror and poorly concealed amusement. He was cornered. She owned him. I'll take the basement," he whispered. "Excellent." Serafina clapped once. "Arthur, please escort Mr. Carter to his new office. Make sure he doesn't pocket any staplers on the way down." As Arthur gripped Liam by the arm and steered him out, Liam looked back over his shoulder. Serafina wasn't watching. She was already engaged with the CEO, discussing global markets. He was already forgotten. The basement of Stratton Oakmont existed outside of time. Archive B had no windows to reveal the turning of the day, only the incessant flicker of fluorescent tubes emitting a sickly yellow light. The air bore no resemblance to the conditioned, cologne-scented atmosphere of the 45th floor. Down here it smelled of damp cardboard, aging paper, and the metallic tang of overheating scanners. Liam sat on a stool missing a caster, his knees striking the underside of a scarred metal desk. He was digitizing financial records from 1998. Scan. Beep. Save. Next. The rhythm was slowly grinding him down. "Pick up the pace, Carter." The voice belonged to Gary, the floor supervisor. Gary wore short-sleeved dress shirts and had a permanent mustard stain on his tie. 2 days ago, Liam wouldn't have glanced at a man like Gary. Now Gary held the keys to whatever remained of his freedom. "I'm going as fast as I can," Liam muttered. "Not fast enough. The Serafina Trust wants the Q3 archives digitized by Friday. You're lagging by 400 files. That comes out of your break time tomorrow." Liam ground his teeth. He wanted to scream. He wanted to put his fist through the wall. But the memory of Serafina's voice in the boardroom held him in place. Federal charges. 10 years minimum. She had built a cage from laws and ledgers, and he was trapped inside it. When the clock finally struck 6, Liam fled. He took the service elevator to the lobby, avoiding the main glass lifts where former colleagues might see him, and slipped out the side door into a gray, weeping New York evening. He reached for his phone to summon an Uber, a reflex he hadn't yet shed. Then he remembered. Credit cards frozen. Corporate account revoked. He turned up the collar of his jacket and began to walk. 40 blocks to the Four Seasons. By the time he reached the gilded awning, he was soaked through, his Italian leather shoes squelching with every step, a humiliating announcement of his collapse. He approached the front desk and summoned the last remnants of his former arrogance. Key for Penthouse B. The concierge, Henri, who had greeted him warmly every day for 3 months, looked at him without a smile and without reaching for a key. "Mr. Carter," Henri said quietly, "I'm afraid I can't grant you access." "What do you mean? I live there." "Not any longer, sir. The leaseholder, Miss Jessica Thorne, contacted management this morning. The lease has been terminated, effective immediately. The locks have been changed." The floor tilted under Liam's feet. "But my belongings, my suits, my watches." "Miss Thorne requested the apartment be cleared." Henri slid a small cardboard box across the marble counter. "She left this for you. The remaining personal effects, she directed the cleaning staff to donate the rest." Liam stared at the box. A shoebox. His entire existence, reduced to a shoebox. "Donate them," he whispered. "The watches, the suits. The charity vehicle came at 3 o'clock, sir." Liam seized the box with shaking hands, turned away from the desk, ignoring the murmurs of the bellhops, and walked out of the hotel. He found a dry patch of pavement beneath a bus shelter 2 blocks away. He sat on the cold metal bench, shivering, and opened the box. Inside, 1 tube of toothpaste, 1 phone charger, and a letter. It was typed, on Stratton Oakmont letterhead. A final, petty flourish. "Liam, I spoke with my father. He made it clear that the Thorne family brand cannot be associated with a man under investigation for internal theft. It's simply poor optics. I had lunch with Serafina today, Miss Rothschild. She is genuinely impressive. She explained everything. How you treated her. How you treated me. It was an illuminating conversation. She offered me a position with her foundation's public relations division. It's a global role. Paris, Milan, Tokyo. I leave tonight. I realized that while you were climbing your ladder, you were actually just weighing me down. Don't try to contact me. My number has changed. And don't search for the engagement ring I bought you. I returned it. The store credit went toward a new Birkin. A far better investment. Goodbye, Liam. You wanted to be unforgettable. Congratulations. You're now a cautionary tale. G. Liam crumpled the letter. A raw sound tore up from his chest, something between a scream and a howl, that made pedestrians across the street stop and stare. He sat there for an hour as the fury burned itself out, leaving only a cold, hollow dread. He had nothing. No position, no home, no relationship, no money. He was back where he had started, only worse. When he had been with Oprah, he was poor but full of hope. Now he was poor and disgraced. But as the rain pounded the pavement, a strange, twisted logic began to take root. She didn't fire me, he thought. She could have called the police right then and there. She could have had me arrested in front of everyone. But she didn't. Why? Why keep him in the building at all? The answer materialized like a fever dream. Because she can't let me go. It's obsession. He stood up and began to pace. She's hurt, he reasoned. I broke her heart. She has the power to level cities. So she's using it to get my attention. This isn't punishment. It's a test. He laughed, a breathless, fraying sound. She wants to see if I'll break. She stripped away everything, Jessica, the money, the penthouse, to see what was left underneath, to see if I would still come back for her. He checked his pockets. He still had the keys to the company car, a sleek black BMW parked in the hotel garage. The repossession order likely hadn't cleared yet. He had a few hours. He ran. He found the car, slid into the driver's seat. The smell of leather settled him instantly. This was where he belonged. Not on a bus bench. Not in a basement. He entered the address into the GPS. Blackwood Estate, upstate New York. The drive was 2 hours. He rehearsed his speech every mile of it. He wouldn't beg. Begging was weakness. He would be composed. He would tell her he forgave her for the public humiliation. He would tell her he understood the why of it, and that he was prepared to take his rightful place beside her. He would summon their shared past, the evenings eating takeout on the floor of their old apartment. He would weaponize nostalgia. By the time he reached the massive iron gates of the Rothschild estate, the rain had lifted, leaving a heavy mist clinging to the tree line. The estate rose on the hill, a fortress of stone and golden light. Liam lowered his window and pressed the intercom. "Liam Carter, I'm here to see Serafina." He expected to be turned away. He expected the police. Instead, the gate opened. The heavy iron bars swung inward, silently. Liam smirked. "See, she let me in. She knew I would come." He drove up the winding gravel drive, the stones crunching beneath his tires. He parked in front of the oak doors, smoothed his damp hair, buttoned his damp jacket, and climbed the stone steps. The doors opened before he could knock, but it wasn't Serafina standing there. "Julian," she said, her tone already moving on to other things. "Please have him escorted out. He's disrupting the atmosphere." Two sets of hands took hold of Liam's shoulders. He was hauled to his feet, his heels dragging across the beautiful floor as they moved him toward the door. "Serafina," he called. "Serafina, please. You can't do this. I loved you." She didn't look back. She accepted her glass from Julian and raised it. "To the future," she said, her voice ringing clear as a bell. "To the future." The room answered, a chorus of the victorious, drowning out the sound of the defeated. The heavy oak doors shut in Liam's face. The lock turned with finality that resonated in his bones. He stood alone in the mist, the darkness of the estate, swallowing him whole. 6 months later, the basement of Stratton Oakmont remained a tomb for the living. Archive B had no natural light, no fresh air, and no hope. The walls were stacked floor to ceiling with metal shelves packed tight, with bankers' boxes that smelled of decay. Liam sat at a small rusted metal desk in the corner. His suit was a distant memory. He wore a cheap polo shirt and khaki trousers fraying at the hem. His hair had thinned. Dark circles had settled permanently beneath his eyes. He looked a decade older than the man who had walked into Joe's diner to end a woman's world. Scan. Beep. Save. Next. He picked up a document. A receipt for a private jet charter from 2018. Cost $45,000. He typed the numbers into the old computer. His fingertips were calloused from paper cuts. His phone buzzed on the desk, strictly prohibited in the archive, but his only tether to the world he'd lost. A notification flashed on the cracked screen. Serafina Rothschild posted a new photo. He knew he shouldn't look. Looking was punishment. Looking was also the only sensation he had left. He tapped it. The photo filled the screen. Taken on the deck of a yacht in Monaco. The Mediterranean behind them was an impossible, blinding blue. Serafina stood at the rail, more radiant and unburdened than he had ever seen her, head thrown back, laughing into the wind. Julian stood beside her, arms wrapped around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. On Serafina's finger, a yellow diamond, the size of a grape. Rare. Priceless. The caption was simple. "Found my equal. Forever." Liam stared at her face. He zoomed in, searching for a trace of a woman in the fraying cardigan. She wasn't there. Oprah was gone. He had dismantled her, piece by piece, across 3 years, and she had risen from it as something he never could have imagined and never deserved. A tear fell from his eye and landed on the screen, blurring the image of the happy couple. "Carter." Gary's voice snapped from the doorway. "Stop looking at photos of ownership and get back to work. You're behind quota. And remember, you still owe $398,000. Liam pocketed the phone and picked up the next document from the pile. A receipt for a dinner at Lernerton. A table for 2. Vintage champagne. Caviar. He stared at the numbers. He picked up the scanner. Beep. And he began to type. And so Liam learned the hardest lesson a man can learn. When you treat people as stepping stones, don't be surprised when you slip on them and fall. He spent his life pursuing gold, only to discover he had discarded the only treasure that had ever truly mattered. Now he wasn't climbing any ladder. He was buried beneath one, paying for his arrogance, one receipt at a time, a prisoner in a cage of his own construction.